And I know that we have this constant return to an argument about states' rights, and there's this effort to sort of, if this is the province of the state, I've seen some of the commentary coming from governors DeSantis. Excuse me, DeSantis and Abbott about this fact that they did not want those federal monitors in those spaces. And so my question then becomes, for at least certainly something that I've heard the audience question, at the point that a voter or a poll worker is looking to the federal government to provide some sort of physical protection from antagonistic behaviors from folks who don't want them to exercise their franchise. And then you've got the state saying you don't need that sort of protection. The individual voter or the poll worker is sort of left seeing that there is help over there on the horizon that they can't actually access. In your understanding of how these things are supposed to work, do the federal troops have the capacity to, I don't want to use the word Trump, but do they have the capacity to, because of their federal power, preempt the governor's ability to block them from coming in if the federal government has a preemptive capacity in this? And by that, audience, what I'm saying is there are certain things where if the federal government has spoken, it don't matter what the states say. They're not the federal government. The state is just like given the authority that the federal government has delegated to them in this particular instance. What is your understanding? And if you could please help me and the audience better understand when it comes between that battle of who's got the final say, whether it's the federal monitors who are authorized by federal legislation to keep voters safe as they're exercising their franchise, or the state actors who quite frankly benefit from disenfranchising these voters, because it feels to me like a 2024 version of what we were seeing in the lead up to elections in the 60s and 70s. What are your thoughts there for the long-term solutions?
Well, look, federal law can, by and large, preempt state laws, either in narrow instances or in broad categories. But unfortunately, the federal law that really allowed DOJ the most power to deploy observers inside of polling sites was part of the Voting Rights Act, the part that was gutted by the Supreme Court 11 years
Right.
ago in the horrible case Shelby County v. Holder. It gutted the
Beholder. Yeah.
pre-clearance provision, which meant that any jurisdiction with a documented history of racial discrimination in voting had to have any change pre-cleared, and also DOJ could send observers into those polling sites. That
But
part
now,
of the
couldn't
law
they
is gutted.
also be bailed in? Isn't there another provision of the Voting Rights Act that would allow them to be essentially deemed covered by the Voting Rights Act pre-clearance provision, even if the coverage formula is no longer effective because of their history of bad acts? Is that still applicable?
It is, but that is a very high bar, and it barely happens. And that's
Okay.
exactly why we and other organizations are pushing Congress to create a new voting rights bill, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights
There it
Advancement Act.
is.
We've been pushing for that for over a decade, and the
Yeah.
time is nigh. And so we're told by current Senate leadership and also allies in the House that this will be job one in the next
Okay.
Congress, which starts in January. Of
Yeah.
course, whoever holds political power will get to decide what gets heard and what the calendar is, and of course, will have sway in terms of majority of votes. But this is the kind of thing where we can't allow things like the filibuster in the Senate get
Right.
in the way. We need to
That's
break
right.
through the morass of the last decade because our rights have been eroded really over the last 11 years in a really bad
Indeed.
way.
Indeed. What is the best way for folks to follow the work that you're doing? The 866 Our Vote, that's the number we give out at my law center, the Center for Law and Social Justice, either there or we'll direct people to Attorney General Tish James's office. But these are practical tools, these hotlines that can guide people who are being told all sorts of things. Either they can't vote or they're not found in the system. And so that 866 Our Vote is a number of folks. You're going to hear me repeat this ad nauseum throughout the day and tomorrow because you have to know where to go when you're seeking help. President Hewitt, what should folks, as they're going in tomorrow, we try to get as many people as we could to early vote on this channel. Everybody up and down
Right.
the channel has been saying early vote, early vote, early vote. But we are expecting tomorrow a massive turnout. Certainly the Urban View family is going to turn out because that's what we do. What should we know? We just have a minute or two left, but in our time remaining together, what should we know about tomorrow? How should we be preparing? And what do you do for faith during these times of great, grievous tumult in our
Mm.
nation? Give us some of your
Well,
insight.
first things first, make your plan to vote. That means not only knowing where to vote, but also checking your registration status. If you're not, even today, if you're not showing up as registered, again, in over 20 jurisdictions, you can still register same day. Call 866 our vote or text 866 our vote, go to Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, or go 866ourvote.org, and you can be connected to a trained attorney volunteer to give you nonpartisan, reliable, and accurate advice. But
Excellent.
also, if you encounter problems at the polling site in person, don't just leave in frustration, and definitely don't get into it with folks and argue with
Right.
the poll workers, because there'll be eyes on you. Call
Right.
866 our vote, or reach us so we can help you in real time. When you call, someone will pick up that phone, right? That's the whole point. The other thing I would say is, you know, be mindful what the rules are, whether you can actually bring cell phones into the booth. If not,
Right.
keep it in your car, have somebody hold it for you outside. Just make it as easy on yourself as possible and go as early as you can. In terms of faith, look, here's the thing. We know that people did so much before us just so we could have the right to
That's
vote.
right.
And
That's
so
right.
it's our chance to actually, revel in the fact that we actually get that right. And if we don't exercise the right, that right could be taken away. Democracy is
Mm.
more fragile than people like to admit. And
Yeah.
so the way the democracy can get weakened is not just by bad actors, but by us if we don't leverage it. What good is
Mm.
power if you don't use it? It atrophies and it dies.
That's right. And we, as I believe Sherilyn Eiffel says, we do not believe in leaving power on the table. We're going to take all
Yep.
that power, we're going to use that power, and we're going to work to make our communities better because that is our obligation. It's our birthright, quite frankly, folks. Those of us who descended from those who have faced the most horrific conditions known to mankind, and who also descended from those who created math, science, and all the intelligent thinking that we now have in the universe, or at least our understanding thereof. We have a long legacy of faith to draw on, and we know that faith with works is amazingly empowering. And so we're going to walk by faith into that voting booth. We're going to pray by faith. And I don't care if you pray, chant, meditate. I don't care who you pray, chant, and meditate to. But we're going to access all our power, our intellect, and our spiritual capacity, and our emotional well-being to move forward in community. President Hewitt, I hope we can get you back on the show. We are a voting people on this channel, and we need to make sure that we are up to date on the best information when it comes to keeping the franchise and expanding the franchise and our access to it. Thank you so much for being with us today. And 866 Our Vote, is that .org? That they can get that on all the socials, all the phone lines, everything. 866 Our Vote. That's the number to know.
That's it.
All right.
866 our vote.
We appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.